All right, we are off and running. My name is Jay Berman. Welcome to the New York Giants Squad Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. We've got new faces, hopefully different results. We'll tell you all about it coming up.
I'm Patricia, trainer of Locked On Giants, and will the Giant players respond to the changes being made in the locker room?
I'm Mark Collins, two-time Super Bowl champion. Kafka, head coach.
Let's go, Big Blue. It's the New York Giants squad. Everything New York Giants every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the G-Men. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. The Giants Squad Show starts now.
All right, we are back after a tumultuous week in New York Giants country. As we said, the Giants have new faces and several spots we'll discuss. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. As we said, what a week in Giants land, Patricia. It's our first time together since the axe fell. All right, we'll start from the beginning. No more Brian Daboll.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You never like to see anybody lose their job because it means that the job's just not getting done. But unfortunately, folks, this had to be made. There was just too many things that were going on behind the scenes that just you were left scratching your head. Player personnel, some of the decisions, some of the inconsistencies. Some of the players that I spoke with in the locker room, over the last few weeks, they were like, what are we doing here? So they needed to find some stability. And at the end of the day, ownership decided that the way to go was to replace the head coach. They named Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, assistant head coach, as the interim head coach. And that, of course, set off a whole new chain. Tim Kelly is now the OC. But Shane Bowen remains. Joe Shane remains. So we'll see if, removing those guys, removing Brian Daboll, we'll see if that fixes it.
It's interesting because we've had a lot of problems with a lot of different people on the team, on the coaching staff, and yet, Mark, only as of now things can change, obviously, but as of now, only Brian Daboll takes the fall.
Yeah, well, you know what? And Patricia called this weeks ago. She said, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, not verbatim, but you said there's got to be a pound of flesh that's got to happen to please the fans. Something got to happen, and it did. And it's Daboll. I think he lost his job because of the ugly losses in a row. Listen, no one wants to lose. It was how they were losing with the lead, big leads, game time decisions. It just got ugly. And as Patricia's mentioned, in the locker room, all the banter going back and forth, the indecisions that's going on, that reverberates through an organization. And that's why he got fired. So, yeah, it's Daboll for now. But at the end of the season, we'll see what else happens.
Patricia, what was the locker room like? Obviously, weird, for lack of a better term, just because it's not something that you go through every single day. But again, it must have been interesting to get in there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, again, nobody wants to see people lose their jobs. And, I asked a few players, I said, do you kind of feel like you could have done more to make for a different outcome? And of course, everybody said yes. But you know what was kind of interesting? And I'm going to go back to when Tom Coughlin resigned his post. Now, I know it was a different, scenario. It was the end of the year. But I remember he resigned his post, and then we were allowed in the locker room. And in talking to the players, there was a sense of sadness. I did not get that from this locker room this week. I got a sense of, all right, it happens. The NFL's a business. Carry on. Next day, new day, and whatnot. Yeah. And that kind of stuck out to me.
Very interesting. Mark, your thoughts there. As Patricia said, much different feel from the way Tom Coughlin is.
That tells me a lot. That tells me that the players didn't really respect him that much. They didn't buy into his style of coaching. They were basically going through the motions at a high level, but they were not laying their job on the line for him. that makes any sense. They were not putting their career on the line for that coach because that coach didn't connect with them. So that's interesting. Now, playing for Parcells and Kaufman was on that staff as well. I know those coaches. And playing for those guys, and even the guys who played for Kaufman, that's why they, you know what, he walked away. They felt bad for him because they felt him. The players didn't feel that with Dable. That's surprising.
Patricia, why do you think at this point in time, and as we said, it could change, we don't know, but why do you think at this point in time, Mr. Maris sort of split him up? Why did Shane stay?
I think two reasons. Number one, we all know Mr. Mara is going through some health issues, some serious health issues. And I've gone through cancer, and I know how the treatments knock the stuffing out of you. You don't even want to be bothered picking out your clothes at the start of the day, let alone making big decisions regarding your business. So I think at the end of the day, they looked at the lesser of the evils and they said, okay, you know what? We've got a good young core of talent on this team. We're just not optimizing what we have. I mean, you look at the defense, you're not going to tell me that they don't have talent on that side of the ball. But you're also not going to convince me that they haven't been getting the most out of it. So I think at the end of the day, they said, okay, you know what? Joe's done enough at this point to stay. Brian has not. We've got to split them up, and it's interesting because they both came in together. They were both attached at the hip. They did basically all their pressers together with the exception of one, and that was at the end of last year. At the end of the day, they decided to split them. Now, the telling thing for me, Joe Shane has one more year left on his contract. Does he get an extension? And the reason why I say that is if you're a top flight coaching candidate, are you going to want to come to an organization where the GM is potentially a lame duck? Mm-hmm. So that's something I think ownership needs to figure out. And, they have 7 games left to decide, okay, was it really Dable's coaching that did this team in, or is it something bigger?
Were you surprised, Mark, that it wasn't a package deal on the way out?
Yeah, but at this stage of the season, you get rid of both of them, you really have nothing anyway. You have nothing to finish with. Somebody had to go. And it's easier to get rid of the head coach and replace him with an assistant than the GM and replace them with an assistant GM or office clerk or whatever. Just easiest to do. So this whole deal is going to ride itself out. Where do the Giants go from here? Now, and I agree with Patricia. I don't know. I can think of any coach, a high flight coach, want to come in with a lame duck GM to pick his players. So we'll see what happens.
And his 3 best players coming off injury. Not that they won't be healthy, but the fact that the running back, the quarterback, and the receiver all hurt this year might make it less desirable. Now, Patricia, you talked about, before we came on the air, some changes at practice with Kafka. Very interesting from what you were allowed to watch. Can you tell us, give us some insight there?
Yeah, so basically what Kafka said, and just to clarify everything, the media is only allowed to see like the first 20 minutes or so, the warm-ups, the individual stuff and whatnot. But Kafka said something about, we're going to focus on specific areas. For example, are we going to, if they were bad in third down the week before, maybe they put a little bit more emphasis on that. But, one thing that they did do this week, and I've been calling for this for the longest time, they had the kickers go and kick in the stadium. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Now, you all know that MetLife Stadium, like Giant Stadium before that, was a wind tunnel. And if you want to give your kickers the best possible chance of making their kicks, why not take advantage of it by sending them over to practice in the stadium, get used to the swirling winds and the wind patterns? They hadn't really done that up until this week. So that was another change they made. They tweaked a little bit of how they're running the practices as far as, Darius Slayton told me that Wednesday's practice was more kind of like borderline walkthrough. He said it was a practice, but it was a little ease into it type of deal as opposed to hit the ground running. So, just little tiny things like that. And what I'm curious to see is how that translates over into the games. Do they change the offense, for example, maybe tie into some of the things that they hadn't been doing that maybe worked in the summertime that they dropped for whatever reasons. And I guess we could talk about that when we get to the offensive coordinator change, but I have some ideas on how that might play out.
All right, Mark, let's obviously get into the quarterback situation. Jackson Dart's not going to play this week, we don't think, but that means Jameis. And I think a lot of people were, for lack of a better term, wanting Jameis to play over Russell Wilson, and we'll get to Russ. But again, not only is there a new face on the sidelines, there's a new face under center as well.
Well, that's a smart move. I think Jameis is much more elusive than Russell Wilson is, more athletic. So is he a better quarterback at this point? Yes. Does he fit the style of offense that the Giants want to run? Absolutely. Will it divide the locker room at some point? Do anybody really care? No, because, hell, you lost your coach already. So I think these guys are just playing for their positions and jobs right now. But I do like the move. I like the call putting Jameis Winston at quarterback. Gives the Giants a better opportunity of being productive, running with a predominantly, he can run as well. James can run as well, and he can throw. Now, he's going to throw some picks up there, so he's going to throw some interceptions. He's going to make some bonehead plays. But at this point, what do you got to lose?
I agree. We saw what Russell Wilson, for some reason, has just gone downhill way too fast. It's amazing that Dallas game, thinking about how good he looked there. But again, Russell Wilson has been a pro about it, Patricia. So let's sort of dive into the Russell Wilson portion here.
Yeah, absolutely. Russell Wilson has been an absolute pro. You know, he could sit there and he could say, I demand a trade. I want my release. He could throw a temper tantrum. The man has been nothing but class. You know, look, football aside, and he's not a fit for what the Giants offense has become. When they switched to Jackson Dart, they changed a lot of stuff to better suit what Jackson Dart does well. And Jameis Winston just so happens to have a similar skill set, maybe not as polished as what Jackson Dart has, because Jameis is getting a little long in the tooth there, but he's got a more similar skill set than Russell Wilson. But Russell Wilson, total pro, you know, very gracious. He could have run and hid from the media yesterday. He sat in his locker. We were a little apprehensive about approaching him, but when he saw us, he kind of like gestured, come on over, it's okay. Stood up, he talked, he answered every single question, made sure he gave a good answer, said, I'm committed to doing whatever I can to help this team, whether it be Jameis, whether it be Jackson, whoever needs me, I'm here. And I tip my hat to him. That's mad respect to Russell Wilson for that.
Yeah, that's unusual. I was just going to say it's pleasant to hear because you like when people are nice. But Mark, that seems like it's unusual. Most guys might not say how they're really feeling, but to be a pro's pro like that, kudos to Russell Wilson.
Oh, absolutely. But you got to remember, guys, a player like that, he knows how the game is played. You know, he's older. He's won more than he's lost. He's been there. He sees the writing on the wall. He also sees, by him being negative, puts him in a bad light. You don't want to be like an Aaron Rodgers, you know, or somebody like that who's all vengeful. And you know what? Give the guys props. I've done it all. I've seen it all. I've done it all. I've won. Kudos to the next guy behind me or in front of me at this point. And to be that classy goes a long way. On the field and after his career is over, and doing it in the biggest city in the country, almost in the world, New York City, the media capital of the world, that's class.
What are our expectations from Jameis, Patricia? Obviously, we know he loves to throw the ball downfield. So as anybody can remember, you're going to get some interceptions, but you might also get some bombs. So what are our expectations from Jameis?
Yeah, I think they're looking to maybe not lose a whole lot with Jameis in there, you know, when they had Jackson in there. But, you know, let me put this to you. Jameis Winston for all season long has been the third quarterback. When was the last time you saw the third string quarterback regularly break down the huddle before the game? It doesn't happen very often, does it? That just goes to speak to the energy he brings to the locker room, you know, just in talking to some of his teammates about what to expect and what he could bring. everybody who spoke about Jameis did so with a smile on their face, which says a lot. Jameis, I call him a national treasure because he's just so authentic and so real and spontaneous. And I mean, you love the personality. And I realize that sometimes, the interceptions can be maddening and you just want to just say, what are you doing, man? But, I just think overall, it's almost like an injection, because look, when Malik Neighbors went down, energy was lost from that locker room. Cam Scatterboom went down, energy was lost from that locker room. Jackson Dart went down. I think if they had gone to Russell, no offense to Russell, because I respect him, they would have lost more energy. But Jameis kind of picks up that energy level, if you will. And I think that's going to help players because they're going to be like, okay, you know what? We don't have Jackson, but we got Jameis. Let's go out there and let's get it.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Go ahead, Mark.
And plus, now, when have you seen the last time in any sport, we're talking football here, the third string quarterback is doing tour buses in New York City, doing videos, all this other stuff in the city and just having a good time. Jameis is happy to be there in New York. He loves it. Better than Tampa, better than New Orleans, wherever he's been. He feels comfortable. He sees this is his last stop, and now this is maybe his last shot of playing like this. He's got to take advantage of it. I think he'll do pretty well.
All right, we'll shift our attention to the defense, which of course begins with Shane Bowen, and we'll have some nice things to say about Shane Bowen coming up next. All right, we'll start with Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today, see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts for a project? Well, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their trade master perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trade Master program today. Score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, we are back, and for the last, I would say, month, maybe even 6 weeks, this is the portion of the show when we talk about Shane Bowen. And every week for the last month or so, we've talked about Shane Bowen exiting. Well, Brian Dable got fired, Mark, but Shane Bowen did not.
No, he's not going to get fired. I mean, who are you going to replace him with? I mean, Dable was the offensive guy, so you replace him with Kafka, who's the offensive guy as well. Okay? You fired a DC. You fired Bowen. Who are you going to replace with? The linebacker coach? The defensive line coach? Who? So, I mean, the best you can do in that situation is hopefully the scheme is not going to change. Maybe the bye week is some weeks away, but maybe during the process of the next coming games, that the team itself and Bowen, Shane Bowen, they got to go in and say, listen, let's go through this playbook, defensive playbook. Let's take all this crap out that's not working. And let's shrink the playbook. And I said before, when I played in the 80s and early parts of the 90s with the Giants, we had 2, maybe 3 different coverages. And we played the hell out of them. We knew the other team knew what we were playing, but we based it on Belichick would go, my 11 are better than your 11. We're going to beat the hell out of you. We don't care if you know what we're playing. And we did that to perfection. Other teams have done that as well. You're not going to trick a lot of people. You're not going to just rush the passer all the time, because if you rush the passer all the time, guess what they're going to do? they're going to run the ball right at you. And that's what teams are doing to the Giants defensively. So my thing is shrink the defensive playbook, give the 3 or 4 or 5 coverages that they have great production in, and let them just play goddamn good defense. Let's do that. But to fire the whole defensive staff or Shane Bowen and get somebody else in there, you think things are going to change? I don't think it would.
All right,
and to Mark's point, real
ahead.
quick, Dable, after the game at Chicago, said in that fourth quarter, Bowen was trying everything that he could think of to slow things down. So if you're constantly trying different things and nothing's working, you're going to confuse your players. So
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Simplify things. Go with, a core group of plays that's best suit who you're playing with, and stick with it. Why throw 50 million things out there when you can't do, 4 or 5 things right? I mean, it made no sense.
It's really interesting because obviously we focused, especially with Bowen, we focused on the run defense and how bad it's been. Green Bay just scored 7 points against Philadelphia. Now, we're not comparing the Giants and the Eagles, but this might be an angry team, Mark.
Yeah, but guess what? Guess what the Packers going to do? They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball, especially to their right and the Giants' defensive left. Because there's a pattern that's been set in the copycat league. People watch film. They figure, hey, if this team did this in week 2 and 3 and they still haven't fixed it, guess what we're going to do in week 11? The same damn thing. So it's not going to stop. Now, if Shane Bowen can somehow minimize the play calling and defensive plays to stop that, 2 or 3 coverages, 2 or 3 defensive fronts, yeah, you have a shot. But the Packers, they're not going to do that. They're going to do the same thing the Eagles did and every other team, the Broncos, every other team that has success against that Giants front 7, they're the same damn thing.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do. When the Giants are allowing, as we said, over 1,500 rush yards, it's not like Shane Bowen, Patricia, wasn't trying before the firing. I'm sure he gave it his all. But again, this is a team that struggled there, and who knows if it gets any better on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, to Mark's point, it's the old Vince Lombardi approach. We're going to keep doing it to you until you figure out how to stop us. And that's basically what we are seeing. But look, we can point to Shane Bowen and we can point to the schemes, and certainly that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, execution has to be there. How many times have we seen players take bad angles? How many times have we seen players not get off of blocks? How many times have we seen mental mistakes where a runner goes inside and the defender goes outside? So that part has to be taken into consideration as well. Now, is that because the players are getting confused? I would like to think that's not the case. I would like to think that they have intelligent guys playing defense back there. But these are all questions you need to work through and say to yourself, okay, if we simplify things, will this allow our guys to play faster? Because right now you watch that defense, and can anybody say that defense is just flying around and not thinking? I see a lot of thinking and a lot of second guessing going on there, and I think that's part of the problem.
Well, that happens. That happens when you don't know what the hell you're doing. When you have too many options, you don't know what the run field is. You don't know if you got inside, outside, and cover 2. You don't know if you have deep third or inside post. You don't know anything when they throw in you got too many things to think about in coverages. Go cover 2, go cover 3, go a base front, over or under front, and let these guys just go, this is my job, this is my responsibility, I'm going to do it. And the less any player has to think, the better the performance will be. You can play at full speed.
All right, let's do injuries now, and specifically on the defense. Thibodeau and Okereke, who knows? Adebo's back, or this is as far as practice yesterday. So, Patricia, I mean, without those 2 guys, not that the defense has been any good, but that doesn't make things any easier.
No, it doesn't. I mean, anytime you lose your starters, I mean, there's a reason why they're your starters. Now, we don't know for sure if Okereke is going to be out. Now, as of Thursday, Kafka said that there were no major changes to the injury report, so I don't know exactly what that means, that some guys maybe come back or whatnot, so we still have to wait and see. But, you don't want to lose a Bobby Okereke. You're
Mm.
already thin at that inside linebacker position as it is. You don't want to lose him. He's the brains of that operation. If they can get a Debo back, that would be huge. That would be absolutely huge because I don't want to see Deontay Banks continuing to be trotted out there. I'm sorry. He's got the talent, but just something's not connecting with him. And he's got to be held accountable. He just has to be held accountable. And I'm sorry. So if a Debo can go out there, I'll take a Debo at 80% versus Banks at 100% at this point. So yeah, that's a concern, obviously. And as far as these other injuries go, we'll see how they go. Thibodeau, I don't think is serious. I think maybe he's going to be good to go. He was at his locker yesterday, and usually, guys are banged up. You don't see them in the locker room. They're not allowed to talk to you. And I was chatting with him, and so I don't think that's serious. But we'll see. All guys that they can't afford to be without.
It's interesting, and we discussed this on Sunday, Mark, but we saw 2 sacks in particular that did not count. The Dex sack, and then obviously the Abdul Carter sack, both erased by penalties on Sunday. That being said, can you judge, especially a first-year player like Carter, can you judge it purely on stats? Because, and for Dex, who's not a first-year player, but for Carter and Dex, the stats just are not there.
Well, no, I mean, sometimes stats can be misleading. I do believe he is that guy, right? He once he learns the game, the pro game, he'll be that guy. Once he figures it out and gets his mind around the whole playbook, and the Giants figure out how to use him, that doesn't bother me. His effort doesn't bother me. He just got to figure out, the Giants got to figure out how to use him. That's basically it. What is he, inside rusher, outside rusher, blitzing on drop? Find his strength and let him grow into that position. Because I do believe he's that guy, he's that type of guy to be very dominant.
It's funny. We love that front. We love those players individually. And yet we're talking about why on earth the defensive coordinator still has a job. So it's confusing, Patricia, because there are good players there. But if the defense as a whole has been so bad, it makes me think the guys that aren't the top tier players are really bad.
I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I think it's a case. Look, Shane Bowen, when he was hired, one of the biggest questions I had was how much of the success he had in Tennessee was because of his system or because he was running Mike Vrabel's system? And I still have that question. When I look at Shane Bowen and I see just some of the combinations that he puts together and some of the things he asks, I say to myself, is he really getting the most out of these guys? Now, I understand you've had some injuries that you've got to account for. So maybe you've got to ask some guys to play out of position. For example, inside linebacker's been banged up. So now maybe you've got to ask Abdul Carter to play a little bit more inside linebacker than you ordinarily would. But just, within the scheme, though, asking them to do stuff like, for example, Kayvon Thibodeau, having him drop into coverage, is that really the best use of his talent? I don't think so. And is that, could they have somebody else do that? Could maybe Abdul Carter, who did it at Penn State, could he do that? Is that the way you want to go? No, it's not. But if you've got injuries, you have to be able, the coaches say next man up, but you better have a plan if you're a coach for the next man up. And I don't know that Bowen's plans are, solid enough.
I feel bad picking on guys individually, but I will say this, collectively as a unit, it's been horrible. So how do you attack it, Mark? I mean, you don't want to get too personal. You don't want it to get too mean, but at the same time, these guys are just failing. I mean, those are the facts.
Yeah, you're only as good as your teacher. So if your teacher is teaching stupidity, you're going to play stupidly. So listen, those guys made it to the league because they got talent. They're playing because they're talented. They're not awful. Even the worst player on any NFL team is better than the top player in college. So, that's just how it is. But it's what you're being taught. If you can't take what you're being taught and apply it to the field and be successful, well, what's the movie? Cool Hand Luke. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Some people you just can't reach, and maybe coming from Shane Bowen, the communication to his players, they're not connecting. So what do? Well, you got to simplify some stuff. And I keep saying, I know it's repetitive because I lived it. I played for Belichick. I played for Fritz Sherman in Green Bay. I played for a lot of good defensive coordinators. And those guys, with the great talent that we had in Kansas City and New York, our playbook was limited because we had some damn great players. And to let those great players flourish, you got to keep it simple, stupid. Let them play 2 or 3 coverages, 2 or 3 fronts, and let them go. Sometimes these defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators, they get too smart. I'm going to do this. I'm going to trick this coordinator. I'm going to trick this guy. Man, listen. There's some damn good players on the Giants defense. Let them play. Here's the ball. Here's the playbook. Just go do these coverages. Do these fronts. Let's go. Sometimes simple is the best way to go.
All right, we will focus in on the Green Bay Packers coming up next after a break. As we said, real bad loss to the Eagles on Monday night. So a short turnaround for the Packers. We'll focus in on them next. All right, let's start with BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. This season, it's so important to reach out and check in with friends, family, or even yourself. Just like checking on a teammate or reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirits, reaching out for therapy can make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are. I've noticed that simply talking things through, even for a few minutes, helps clear my head and get me back on track. Therapy isn't just for when things are falling apart. It's about staying balanced and growing through tough seasons. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist who fits your needs, and you can switch anytime if it's not the right match. Over 5 million people have used BetterHelp, and with 30,000 therapists available, finding support really is just a few clicks away. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. Listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Because taking that step towards support might just leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? All right, so as we said, the Green Bay Packers coming off a loss. They had a chance to send it to overtime at the end against the Eagles. An awful kick. It was 60-something yards. Probably wouldn't have gone it anyways. Point is, the Packers scored 7 points, Patricia. They've got to be angry.
Oh, no question. And, you know, the Packers, they've struggled. I mean, I think they've scored they've allowed 74 points in their last 4 games. They've lost their last 2. They're jockeying for position in the postseason. They're going to come in with a vengeance. And what I'm kind of curious to see is how they attack the Giants. Now, I think they're going to go after the Giants' run defense because, as we've been discussing on this program, and as we've discussed before, you keep attacking it until you can figure out how to stop it. And the Giants have not figured out how to stop it despite the talent they have. I think you'll see a lot of play action, a lot of things to really test that defensive secondary, especially even if you get a Debo back off of the injury. You know, is he going to be truly 100% to where he can turn and run with guys? So this is going to be a really, really good challenge for that Giants defense. That Packers offense is going to come in with guns a-blazing, and they're going to go after them.
Go ahead, Mark.
Green Bay has weapons offensively. We know that. And just something just come to mind. When was the last? I bet you who's mad really? The NFL. They don't like 10-7 games.
Neither do I.
Everyone's going, this is a passing league. But yeah, Green Bay, they're gonna be angry and they're gonna come out to try to establish something. And we talked about it. They're gonna run the ball. They're gonna establish a run, of course, play action. That team is very talented. Now to play the Eagles. Eagles are the Eagles. Okay, the Super Bowl champions. Blah blah blah. So I do expect a good game, and I think the Packers. If I were the Packers, I'm thinking this is a team we're playing against that we can get healthy and back on track on. Okay, they suck against the run. The secondary's banged up. They just fired their coach. There's a lot of instability going on in that organization. Let's take advantage of it, and that's what I think the Packers would want to do to try to win the game.
We talked about it last week with Chicago on the schedule. What a logjam in that NFC North. Lions and Bears are 6-3. Packers are 5-3-1. Vikings are 4-5. As we said with the Bears, Patricia, plenty to play for there. Packers goes for them as well. Plenty to play for.
Absolutely. And, the other thing, we talked about the offense and the Packers offense and the threat they have. Can we talk about the defense? Micah Parsons coming in, a guy that they line up all over the place, and they're going to find the weak spot on the Giants offensive line. And I guarantee you that's where Parsons is going to be. And that's going to tell us a lot about, what the Packers think of the Giants. But yeah, the Packers, they've got stuff on the line. The Giants, they sort of have stuff on the line. I mean, anybody who really cares at this point, they're playing for their job because there's no guarantee they're going to be here next year. Mike Kafka is playing for a permanent role as a head coach. These assistant coaches, they're playing for their job or coaching for their jobs. So it's not quite the same as jockeying for postseason position, but there's stuff on the line for the Giants. And, they've got to come out and they've got to come fight. They can't just lie down and say, okay, you know what? Our season's done. Our head coach just got fired. Our quarterback is injured. Our best receiver and best running back are injured. No, you got to come out and you got to give it your all.
I was trying to figure out a way that we could sneak in a win here. So here goes. Here's one possible theory, Mark. After the Giants, the Packers have the Vikings, Lions, and Bears. Any chance they're looking past the Giants?
No. No. Because, it always comes up, right? Oh, this is a trap game. You get trap games in college ball. And I know it's hard to overlook a professional football team. Those guys are out there to try to, number one, you want to try to win. They want not to embarrass themselves, and they get paid. So on both sides. So it's hard to go, is this a trap game for the Packers based on their future schedule? On paper, you can say yes. But in reality, man, I bet you the Packers, that whole organization is going, hey, let's focus one game at a time. I know what's going on, the turmoil in New York with the Giants, all the stuff that's going on. We got to focus on this team because this team's going to come in hungry. Players playing for their job, a coach who is auditioning for a head coaching job. We have a general manager who's don't know he's going to be there next year. Everything you can mention, the Giants have something to prove as well. So, yeah, it looks like a trap game on paper, but in reality, hey man, the Packers got to look at the Giants as a formidable opponent.
Yeah, Patricia, the Giants players, to a man, you've spoken to all of them, must be tired, and must be tired of being that get-right game on the schedule every single week. That has to be tiring, even if it's true. Mentally, psychologically, that's a hurdle you got to clear.
It's embarrassing is what it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, if you're the second choice of the most popular kid in the class, he didn't get a date with the most popular, girl or boy, whatever, and he goes to you as the second choice, What's that saying? Always a bridesmaid, never a bride, or almost like that. But
Right.
No, it's embarrassing. And this team, I know it doesn't look like it, but I do believe the players have pride. I know we don't see it. And people are asking in the comments section, they're saying, well, why doesn't Deonte Banks turn his head? Or why doesn't this player do this or whatever? I don't know the answer to it. I mean, only those players know in the moment what they were thinking. But, this Giant team, they they've got to believe in themselves, and they've got to believe in what they're being taught and how they're being coached. And I don't know if that has always been the case. So, until that materializes, then maybe they're going to have this reputation as being the get right game.
It's just sad to think about.
Yeah. That's you know what? And I just thought of this when Patricia was talking. It kind of reminds me when players, and we had a good team in the 90s, well, 91, but 92, when the Giants Ray Hanley brought on Rod Russ as defensive coordinator, we still had a great core of people on defense to stop people. But most of us, they didn't buy into the Rod Russ defense. So when Deonte Banks doesn't turn to look for the ball, that's something that can be coached. And I'd love to work with him, but I digress. Some of the stuff you can work through. But when you don't have belief in what the coordinator is calling, and even though that talent is still there, that shows on defense. I lived through it in 92. And we had some great players on that defensive side, but we didn't buy into what Rod Russ was teaching. We couldn't play to our maximum level because the defense he was teaching us didn't fit us. It didn't fit the coordinate, the Bill Belichick players, the Belichick guys that we were, and Parcells guys we were. It didn't fit. And it showed on the field. It was awful. It's embarrassing. We had pride, don't get me wrong, but even myself, I couldn't play fast enough because I didn't fit the scheme he was teaching. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. We talked about being embarrassed, and we don't use the term loosely. Obviously, that is a big deal. But you have to assume that the NFL wants the Giants and Packers not only to be good, but to be good at the same time, especially when they're playing each other, because this is a huge rivalry, Patricia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Packers and the Giants, two of the oldest franchises in the NFL, just like the Giants and the Bears last week. So, yeah, it would be nice. I mean, for historical purposes, not just a throwback to yesteryear, but for the future. But, times have changed. The game has changed. And, to Mark's point, if you don't believe in what you're being taught, or you're being taught to do something that just doesn't fit what you're doing, it's almost like, you've been right-handed all your life. Now, all of a sudden you're being told, oh, you have to write left-handed. You're not going to get it so easily. It's going to take time. And even then you might not be more comfortable doing it left-handed. So, I mean, it's kind of the same idea. And I think a problem with the coaching staff is that all too often, and especially I've seen it in recent years with this Giants coaching staff, not just this one, but previous ones, they come in with a set idea of what they want, and they end up having to jam square pegs into round holes. And it doesn't work that way. A good coach worth his weight in gold knows, okay, you know what? This player might not do what I need him to do as well in my system, but I'm going to tweak my system and figure out a way to accommodate what this player does well. I mean, everybody learns differently in the classroom. Some people, you can sit there and you can lecture to them and they'll absorb the material and go out and perform it. Some people need to be shown the material. Some people need to be hands-on. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like, they come in, these coaches, this coaching staff, and they say, this is how it's going to be. This is what we need you to do. And if it's not a fit, we'll figure it out as we go along. And you can't do that because you're going to lose games.
Right. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, that's why when coaches come in, they want their guys. They want to draft the guys that fit their scheme, right? And the Giants have done that to a point, but for some reason, it's not working out. And you can look at the draft of the last 4 years, and then look at the free agents they brought in. And for some reason, it's not working out. Now, if you draft a defensive back and he's not working out, well, hell, you drafted him, you taught him. Well, that's on you. You should know he can't play man, or you should know he can't play in this slot. You should know all these things. That's why they have the combine and all this other stuff. So, the coaches got to coach better, and players got to learn to adapt better. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. It's either you can't coach it, or the player can't learn it, and you got to make a move on either one or the other or both. So that's where the Giants are, and that's where they're at right now in this period with Kafka running the show, reevaluating what he has, not just on the offense side, but now he has the whole collective deal on a whole team. So it's going to be interesting.
All right, we have one more block in the show to go, our final break. And of course, this NFC stretch continues for the Giants. We'll break it all down coming up next. All right, you know what time it is. It's time for Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates. That includes California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using Prize Picks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. I like picking my favorites like Mahomes and Steph Curry to see how my predictions play out. The new Stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, we are back, and it's the final segment of the show. Patricia, let's get right to it. There was this key NFC stretch, which goes back several weeks: Philadelphia, San Francisco, Chicago, Green Bay, and then Detroit. So far, not so good.
No, not so good on the season, let alone the stretch. But yeah, I mean, look, let's be real here. The Giants are not going to the postseason. I think we could.
What?
I'm sorry.
Man.
I know. Mark's disappointed. I'm disappointed too. You think I like doing a Monday show where all I'm talking about is all the breakdowns? I don't. My listeners deserve better. But anyway, here's where we're at. Okay. So the Giants just haven't been good all season long. But, here's the thing. And I know this sounds kind of lame, but it's the reality of the situation. They're playing for next year. Who's going to stay? Who's going to go? I mean, you don't think that coaching candidates, when they sit down to interview for this job, assuming that Mike Kafka doesn't keep it, you don't think they're going to go back and they're going to look at the film and they're going to say, okay, this guy gave maximum effort. I can use this guy in my system. This guy, we can move on from him. I want to bring in this guy. So there's going to be a lot of change in this offseason with this roster, with the coaching staff. I get asked all the time, would you keep any of the Giants' current coaching staff members? I'd keep Carmen Brasillo, the offensive line coach. I think I would keep Andre Patterson, the D-line coach. I might keep Michael Gabriel, special teams, but the rest of them, move on from them. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. And it's unfortunate, but until they figure this out and they get the right people in who are adaptable and who will take player talent and adapt it to maybe the core concepts, this is what we're in for.
It's amazing how quickly the NFL season jumps up on you. Not only that, it's then amazing how fast it completes itself. We're past the halfway point. Mark, what's the message from the veterans to the younger guys, from the leaders to the followers, about how you play the rest of the way, despite the fact that, as we all think, the playoffs are not going to be a realistic possibility?
Well, the older players there'll be very few speeches. Everybody knows, especially young guys at this point of the season, you got to go out there and play. You got to go perform. You got to have production in your game, because you may not be here next year because a broom is coming. Everybody's gonna get swept out, and And I went through it when Ray Haley was fired at the 92 season and Dan Reeves came on. And as Patricia said, this is what happened. And she's right on. They look at the roster and the film and say, hey, we'll keep that person, this person, that person. They'll pick who they want to keep based on what they saw in the film, players and coaches included. So I went through it. So the older players, they know it. And will they tell the younger players? I mean, no big speeches. Just go do your damn job. Just perform. Because at this point, you're not just playing for the New York Giants. You're playing for, because you may not be here, the other 31 teams out there. Coaches as well. That's just how it is. And unfortunately, or fortunately, at least you have an opportunity to still show what you can do.
There's still a Monday night game. The Giants in primetime. I understand how scheduling in the NFL works, but there are going to be some complaints, some moans and groans about the Giants in primetime in a couple of weeks, Patricia, against the Pats.
Yeah, and I'll probably be leading them because everybody knows I hate night games. I absolutely hate them. No, seriously. I mean, they're just the pits to work.
Yeah.
I mean, with short deadlines and everything. But I digress. No, I mean, look, we're creatures of habits, and night games, they're great for the fans. Primetime games, great if you got a fantastic product that you want to showcase. The Giants aren't there yet.
Mm-mm.
And it's almost painful. Now, I suppose anything can happen. I mean, let's be honest. Who thought back in week 6 the Giants were going to upset the Eagles on primetime? I know I didn't. And they surprised everybody. They actually put together probably one of their most complete games in years. So that being said, the schedule is what it is. We can sit here and we can bemoan the fact, the Giants have the hardest schedule of the entire league. Oh, the Giants have, a Monday night game before the bye. They have this, they have that. It is what it is. You take what you get. It's just like you can't control the weather. For all we know, that it could snow up in New England on that day. You can't control it. So you just work with what you can control. You prepare as best as you can. You go out there, you give a full effort, and you just hope for the best.
You made a great point there, Patricia, and I thought of it, and then I forgot it, and you mentioned it again. At least at this point in time, the weather might be an issue on Sunday for Green Bay, Mark. Looks like there could be some rain. Not snow, but rain. I don't know who that favors. Probably the better team, which is Green Bay.
Well, I mean, the weather's the weather. So rain, snow, sleet, the mailman always got to deliver. So you have to play in it. So it don't matter. It's wild. We're talking about the damn weather.
Again, for the second time in 2 weeks.
I know. Oh, who does it favor?
Also, it doesn't snow.
Right.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't mind playing in rain. I think it's fun. It's fun playing in rain. But for this particular game, I mean, who's got the better running game? Green Bay. I mean, if you could run that slog and run against the worst rush defense in the NFL, hell, do it. I mean, as long as it doesn't freeze up, I think that it's fun. It'll be fun, but it favors Green Bay big time.
Yeah, the schedule part where the bye comes very late for the Giants, week 14. We still have 3 games, 2 on the road before we get to the bye, and who knows how messy it's going to be at that point in time, Patricia.
Yeah, I mean, look, take it 1 week at a time. I mean, we know kind of at this point what the Giant team is. We know about the injuries. We know about the coaching situation. I don't think it's realistic to expect the magic wand to be waved and now all these problems are going to suddenly go away. It would be nice, but I think at this point, and I know this maybe sounds like loser talk, but I just want to see a competitive game. I'd like to see as close as possible to a mistake-free game. I'd like to see a full effort game from the Giants. And we just haven't seen these on a consistent basis. So let's see what they bring, on Sunday. Maybe the new coach will rejuvenate them. Maybe not. We'll see. I mean, I'll be here following it. I know you guys will be as well.
Yeah, it could be very telling. Like, let's just play this out here, Mark. Let's just say the Giants lose the game, but they're clean. No mistakes, no penalties, no turnovers. Okay, so they played a clean game. Let's just say everything is a disaster. Fumbles and penalties and all this. well, then we know what the problem was. It was either Dable or not. So it's like all of it got dumped on Dable when it's just more than you can see.
Well, yeah, but we'll see. We'll see how the game plays out. Let's say the Giants got the lead and they squander it again. That would tell me it's the same situation. It's everybody, right? Let's say the Giants hold a lead, get a lead, and they hold it, and then, okay, cool. Then the next game, they do the same thing. There's some consistency. Then I'll start formulating an opinion. You know what? I see some, okay, maybe it was some of the things that Dable was doing. Maybe it was the same practice schedule, whatever. There's got to be some kind of consistency. If I see the same thing during a game, got a lead, and find a stupid way to lose it, I'm going to say, you know what? It's the whole kid and caboodle. It's still there.
Patricia, do you believe in your heart of hearts that Kafka has a chance to keep the job with wins, or has it been determined already?
I don't think it's been determined. I don't think you can rule it out. It's a 7-game audition for him. If he wins, say, 3 or 4 games, can you sit there and say, okay, we got to give him some consideration? You got to remember, Kafka, he's been in demand for interviews. He hasn't gotten the job, but even when the Giants were struggling the last few years, he's been called up for interviews. So there's got to be something there. Now, do I think at this point that they go with him? No, I think they maybe go with a defensive-minded coach to get more out of that defense, because that right now is where the biggest problem is. But again, the next few weeks will tell us the story. If Kafka doesn't win another game, well, then you've got to clean everything out and start from scratch. If he goes and he wins 3 games, 4 games by some miracle, then you've got something there.
I'm trying to figure out where we get those 3 wins from.
You never know. You line up and you play the game.
No, 100%. And as you said earlier, Patricia, Philadelphia, not only did they win that game, they dominated that game. Yeah. And obviously the first 3 quarters in Denver, we were surprised as well. Big picture here, Mark. What's the message from Kafka down to the players as he gets up in front of them and gives a little speech? I mean, I hope it's not on deaf ears.
No, I would imagine him saying, I've never been in this situation before, but I can imagine him saying, just give me what I want. I'm going to make this simple. Just give me your maximum effort. That's all I ask. Don't do more or less than I ask. Just give me your effort. That's it. And enjoy this. Try to enjoy the best you can these last 7 games, because you're playing for the New York Football Giants, and you're playing for the rest of your job, your career, if you go somewhere else. What you put on film and what people see is you. So hopefully that resonates to those players.
What a week this has been. It is amazing. On top of everything that we've discussed over the last 3 to 4 days, on top of that, Patricia, these guys have to play a game. It is really weird because most of the time we're spent not during the game. Now for these 3 hours, it'll be on the game and we don't have to talk about the future. That being said, obviously not an easy spot for the Giants.
No, it's not. But you know what? Unfortunately, life goes on.
Yeah.
We have setbacks all the time, in life. Whether it's, your favorite team loses, you lose your job, whatever the case may be. Does that mean you take your tent and you fold it up and you call it a day? No, life goes on. And, these players, they understand it's a business. They understand that they have a job to do. They're getting paid for this job. And I would like to think that they're going to go out there and they're going to earn their paychecks.
Last word to you, Mark, all yours.
Giants, don't embarrass us. Just play hard, do your job, and let the chips fall where they may.
All right, another New York Giants squad show in the books. Hopefully when we see you next on Sunday, as I say every Thursday, it comes after a win. For Patricia and Mark, I'm Jay.